So I'm fully expecting this video to be demonetized by YouTube. DIY Cerakote coming up. So if you're familiar with this channel, I attempt to tackle a variety of DIY projects, and DIY Cerakote's right up my alley. I've done it in the past, but I thought that I would do a video on it this time. You can use Cerakote for a variety of different items, metals and plastics, and it has a whole bunch of different applications. In my case, I use it for firearms, but you can use it for lots of different things. So this was my first project that I tried DIY Cerakote with. This is my 7.5-inch SBR. Yes, I do have tax stamp for it. And I did some Cerakote on a few of the accessories here. I did it on like the magazine catch, the takedown and pivot pins, the safety, the bolt catch, trigger shoe, a few pieces back here, charging handle, stuff like that. With this one, I tried the air dry Cerakote because I was hesitant to try the oven cure, so I went with the air dry, and honestly, it's okay, but it didn't turn out great. My application wasn't all that great with it, but also I don't really like the air dry Cerakote. It comes off really easily. I can actually just scrape it off with my fingernail, so it's not that durable. So it hasn't been holding up. There's lots of chips and lots of wear in it and stuff like that. So for my next two projects that I Cerakoted, I used the oven cure. So this is my 10.5-inch pistol. If you haven't been able to tell by now, orange is my favorite color. I decided to go with an orange Cerakote with it. I wanted to be something a little bit more of like a safety orange, so that if I did use this in a home defense situation and the police were to come in, it might look a little bit less of a threat with it being like a safety orange, like easy to identify myself. I did a digital camo Cerakote with it. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And then I also Cerakoted a few of the parts, like the bolt catch and the safety. This is a combination of titanium and black over the orange Cerakote. And then this is a Lancer mag that I just dyed a few days ago with some orange right dye. Pretty happy with the way it turned out. I know you can buy them in orange, but I wanted to try dyeing it. Green didn't work so good. But anyway, so that's my orange Cerakote on my home defense pistol. And then this guy is my 14.5-inch. It's got a pin and welded muzzle device to bring it to the 16 inches. And I Cerakoted it in titanium. This is my lightweight build. I believe it weighs like 6 pounds. This is a Bravo Company KMR rail, really low profile, like it a lot. Skeletonized lower and upper receiver, MFT stock, which are really light, really like that. I did Cerakote the bolt catch, but that was it. Because the bolt catch, I had to slightly grind it down to get it to fit with this upper. This is a PDQ if you're wondering. Love these. Pretty much all my ARs have these. And here's the other side of it. Shout out to the Primary Arms Micro 3X. This is my hands down favorite sight that I own. I've only gotten one so far. I'm still waiting on the others. I received this and promptly ordered more because this is awesome. But the Cerakote job turned out fantastic. I'm very happy with it. Some of the places ended up causing it to be a little tighter. If you look in here, so the buffer tube I Cerakoted titanium as well and caused this to be extremely tight, but I run it all the way in. I never adjust it, so it's fine. It doesn't matter. And it keeps it really locked on there really tight, and there's no wobble. So I'm okay with that. And again, here's that PDQ that I mentioned, and that PDQ here. What that does is allow you to lock the bolt back and release it with your trigger finger, in case you're wondering. All right, so what we're doing here is we are Cerakoting some small parts like we did on the 7.5 inch. We're just gonna be Cerakoting the small parts like the bolt catch, the magazine catch, the pivot pin, the takedown pivot pin, the buffer tube, stuff like that. So we're just gonna Cerakote the small parts on it. YouTube, this is not a how to modify a firearm video. So don't get frowny about that. This is just a Cerakote video. It just happens that I am using Cerakote on firearms, but you can use it on a whole bunch of different stuff. So don't get frowny about that. All right, so I got my parts soaking in acetone right now. And here's the buffer tube. And again, just the small parts. And just using some acetone here. Am I weird because I like the smell of acetone? Leave a comment below if you're weird like me and you like the smell of acetone. So here's what we're using to prep the parts. I'm using a Harbor Freight blast cabinet. I did a video in the past of how I modified this to make it work for me. If you want, you can check that video out after this one. I am also using their aluminum oxide from Harbor Freight. This is actually 70 grit. Cerakote's website recommends, I believe, anywhere from 100 to 120 grit, but this is what Harbor Freight carried, and I didn't want to drive all over the place looking for it, and I didn't want to order it. So this is what I'm using. This is what I used to do the other two, the orange one and the titanium one, and they turned out just fine. The texture might be a little bit rough, but I'm totally fine with the way they turned out. I'm happy with them. So this is what we're gonna use. So I apologize. The camera was not recording when I did the sandblasting, but it's not like you could see anything anyway. I did end up closing the garage door so that I could see into the blast cabinet a little bit easier. You can probably hear the cooler in the background, so hopefully that's not too loud. So here's our sandblasted, or I guess our cleaned up parts. It's technically not sand, it's aluminum oxide that I used. Some of these parts are aluminum, some of them are steel, and we got them all cleaned up. So now we're getting ready and setting up to Cerakote. I got the airbrush out. This is just a Harbor Freight airbrush. It's nothing spectacular, but it does the job. And you can see that I still have Cerakote all over it. And I'm actually wearing the shorts that I was wearing when I did that. I didn't mean to wear these shorts because these were one of my decent pairs, but I got Cerakote on them and ruined them. So I might as well wear them again right now. I have another moisture separator set up over here so that I can just connect the airbrush to it, connect my supply line over here. I can also adjust the pressure if I need to. And then I just have it sitting here kind of in the clamp, not really tight, just to hold it there so it doesn't fall off the table. I got some wires so that we can hang them from. We're using H235 today, Coyote Tan. We don't have very many parts here, so I think I'm only gonna mix up about 9 milliliters. With the hardener, ended up being about 10 milliliters. And I'm doing an 18:1 ratio, which means I need half a milliliter of hardener or catalyst. Let's see how poorly this goes. Huh, poorly. Cerakote recommends 25 to 30 psi to apply the Cerakote, but that is also with I think a bigger gun than an airbrush. You want it to kind of go on looking wet, but not running. If it comes out too dry, then you have the air up too high. The hardest part is it makes it really difficult to see with this really bright background with the garage door open. But if I close it, it's going to get too warm in here. Believe it or not, 10 millimeters or 9 millimeters of Cerakote, 1/2 milliliter of catalyst. That was enough to do all these parts. I thought I wasn't going to have enough, but I had just enough, and I went over a couple of the pieces just a little bit more just to touch it up. And now we got to put them in the oven, hopefully without burning myself too bad. All right, these are all metal parts, and so they got to be in the oven for 1 hour at 300 degrees. Hey, that's kind of gross at the bottom of the oven. Interesting, since we pretty much only use the oven for Christmas and Thanksgiving. And 1 hour on the clock. All right, they've been baking for an hour, and now they have cooled. All right, so we'll take a look, see how these turned out. Initial impressions, they look pretty good. So there's tape that you can get to use with this so that you can put it in the oven. So here's the takedown pin. I Cerakoted the end of it, but not the shaft, because I didn't want to add that extra layer and have it bind up and end up having to sand it off anyway. And now you can see that I did the same thing for the pivot pin. So I have some CMC anti-walk pins. I didn't Cerakote the pin itself for the trigger. I just Cerakoted the screw heads. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's just the screw heads, not the pin itself. So there you go. There's our DIY Cerakote project. If you had to buy everything in order to do this, I would say that it's pretty expensive, and if you're just going to do one project, you're probably better off just paying somebody to do it. There's tons of Cerakote applicators out there, and it would probably be less expensive just to pay them than to buy all the stuff that you would need, like the sand blaster, an air compressor, an airbrush, and all of that stuff. But if you're like me and you have the tools from various other projects, then it's not a big deal. It's not that difficult to do. Also, if you're going to do more than one project or larger projects, then yeah, it might make sense to buy the stuff that you would need. One thing I would like to see from Cerakote, and Cerakote, if you're watching, then I would like to see the availability for smaller amounts, because right here is about 4 ounces, and this small project right here, I only used about 9 milliliters of Cerakote and then like 1/2 milliliter of catalyst. So being able to get it in smaller quantities would be pretty cool. I did buy this one off from Amazon. I don't remember if the other ones that I bought, where I bought those from. You can go directly to Cerakote's website. On Amazon, it is Cerakote that is selling, so you're still buying it from them. It just might be a little bit easier to find. I will put a link in the description below if you want to check that out. There'll be Cerakote's website, as well as like Amazon links where you can get this. You can get different colors as well. It's not just Coyote Tan. They have tons of different colors. So you can actually contact Cerakote and they will send you samples of colors. These are what they look like when they come. They're like metal strips, and they have lots of different colors. This is just a handful of the colors that they offer. So they have quite a few different colors. These are just the samples that I have that I've requested. And like I said before, you don't have to just use this for firearms. You could use this for all sorts of different projects. Right here, I just Cerakoted metal items. There's aluminum and steel here, but you can Cerakote plastics and polymers and all sorts of different stuff. They also have instructions. I got a pamphlet with one of my orders, so it came with the instructions to do it, the baking times, and mixtures and stuff like that, how much catalyst to mix with it. So hopefully YouTube doesn't get mad at me and demonetize this video, or worse, demonetize my channel because I showed some firearms in this video, but I just wanted to show you some of the things that I've used Cerakote for. I haven't used it on anything else outside of that, but I just wanted to show you some of the options that are out there and some of the things that you can do with them. On the orange digital camo, I used stencils, so you can get stencils to Cerakote with as well. And that turned out pretty cool. I'm very happy with the way that turned out. So this is definitely something that you can do yourself. I mean, at least for me, it's not that difficult. So hopefully this helped some of you out there decide to tackle this project yourself. And we will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.